All right, Powers Price. So you are actually my last interview of the podcast, and I'm so excited to have you because you've just always been one of those people that has genuinely been so kind. And even if you don't feel it inside, you're always putting on your best face for other people. And so on the topics of mental health, I'm definitely excited to talk to you and see if we can dive in deeper to how this last year's affected you and kind of how you're working through things now.
Absolutely. I'm actually really honored to be the last one here. I'm definitely been looking forward to talking to you since you started the podcast. So I'm really excited to go through this today.
Yeah. So from the start, I know that we've had conversations about just not being in the best mindset and kind of feeling like you need to put on a face at work or be a certain way. Talk about just kind of dealing with that, of the pressure of needing to show up and feel like you just kind of have to put on a happy face all the time, even if you don't really feel like that on the inside.
A comparison I like to use when I talk about it with other people is Atlas holding up the world, for people that like Greek mythology. So I feel like at the end of the day, I've been holding up a facade, holding up more than I need to a lot of times because I feel like a lot of people are fueled off of other people's energy.
Mhm.
I tend to be more upbeat at work, more outgoing, things like that. So I feel like if I don't do that, I've let other people down and they've had a worse day. So I try my best not to do things like that. So especially like the last year with COVID, not being in the office where there's no body language, you're just virtual all the time, you're in meeting after meeting and trying to make light of it. It's even more exhausting because there's no separation, there's no drive home where you can kind of decompress. There's a 5-minute walk from your bedroom to your desk.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's just, I feel it even more recently. I've dealt with it better as the year's gone on, but it's definitely something that I feel like people feed off my energy, not to be arrogant. It's just the part that I play within my work group or my social group is somebody that people feed off of. And I feel like if I'm not bringing an upbeat, positive attitude, I've let everybody else down.
So it's an expectation thing for, are you afraid that if you don't show up in this way, people are going to ask you what's wrong or think that there's, clearly something not right if you just aren't 100% all the time?
Absolutely. That's a lot of it. And then I also feel like because that's the role I play, people expect it to the point that like conversations or meetings drag or they are just more brutal for other people. Like they're not as fun. They're longer. They feel more like work. So I feel like it weighs everybody else down. And then, as you said, you have to have the same conversation 30 times a day of what's wrong. Why is today different? Why aren't you your normal self? And sometimes it's just easier to put on a facade than it is to act the way you're actually feeling.
Right. So now how do we navigate that? Like, I do agree where sometimes it is easier just to say, I'm fine, even if you're not. And I think it depends on the person. Sometimes it's like, I don't really want to just like get into my whole life story with this person I'm not that close with. But I think we also need to honor that the people that do ask us and are those right people, that we need to let them in and kind of express that, or whether it's through therapy or just some healthy form of getting it out. But how do you navigate that now if you are feeling a little overwhelmed, and are these conversations you have to have, or is it you just gradually kind of start doing things more for you?
So both. For me, in the last year, I can't speak for everybody. Everybody has their own mental health journey. Everybody has their own path to what works for them. What has worked for me? I had a wake up call a while ago. I missed a trip to LA because I was so down. I could not get there. I just could not get out of the depression bubble of like locking yourself down and closing out the outside world. So it was a wake up call. I had a great conversation my next trip to LA with yours truly. And it really kind of brought to light, like, you were one of the first people I've talked to about mental health. Like, I'm from the South. There's a stigma around mental health and just being able to like white knuckle it and figure it out and be strong all the time. So after that, I've kind of, I started going to therapy, like I said, when you and I talked, and I've kept that up. I've kept it up virtually throughout COVID. It's something that I won't miss. It's on my calendar every week. I won't push that. I'll push any other meeting on my calendar, but I won't miss therapy. I've opened up to a couple of people at work. I'm not a very open person to a lot of people. So I've got a really good friend at work and then my boss. I've opened up to them about kind of how I'm feeling. The beginning of COVID was really tough. So I moved to Atlanta really for work. I don't know a ton of people here.
Hmm.
So my social life was going to work every day. That was my social interaction, not social life, but like that was my time to like talk to people and be outgoing and see people. So when the world shut down, I now had no outlet other than just myself, and then video calls. So I was very open. I have a great support system at work, all the way up to the CEO of the company asking me if I wanted to come down and stay at his beach house just
Wow.
to get away. So that made me feel a little bit better about opening up to people and understanding that everybody was going through something. Um, Not that like my situation was unique from anybody else's. Everybody has their own thing, but it meant a lot that like I had people that cared. And so that helped me kind of open up. They know how I'm feeling. I don't open up to a lot of people once again, but people that know me and people I feel comfortable with, I open up to. I talk to a therapist. And that's kind of helped me balance from white knuckling it and just internalizing everything to having a little bit of an outlet. I'm not looking to dump my problems on my friends. That's not who I am. But just them even understanding like, hey, I'm not feeling it today. I just need to take a step back is a conversation I wouldn't have had before. I would have just shut down. So I think it's a much healthier conversation that's kind of happened and been forced to happen over the last year.
Well, when you think about it, it really doesn't even make sense to have this idea of, okay, men and men especially, I think, are grown up thinking that it is weakness to express your feelings or to talk about mental health. And especially depending on where you live, it could be more of a stigma than other places, even in other races. And I think what's so sad is we see anytime, I mean, not every time, but usually when you see a horrible attack, a lot of times it's from a man and a lot of times it's from a white man. And I have to think there's some correlation of the way we're brought up to believe that they can't express emotions. And then obviously they end up expressing emotions in a terrible way when it all comes out because they've never been able to get it out. And I think that it's just, how could we ever assume that a human being, male or female, is not going to have emotions and feelings? And this is not a weird thing. That's what being a human is. And the fact that we are taught to be ashamed of just not feeling 100% one day is so stupid that that's even a thing. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't even make sense.
I completely agree. I mean, it took me 32 years to kind of figure that out and realize that what worked for other people in my family, not in my family, in my general region, in my socioeconomic class, my race, whatever it is, however you want to lump people together, my experience isn't the same as the person next to me or my dad or my grandfather or aunts, uncles, anybody. It's my thing. And I was just tired of being miserable and tired of flaking out on friends if it just got overwhelmed. Like I'm just, life's too short to not reach out and figure out a way to enjoy what you can out of your life. You're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have awful days. I found that out, but I'm having way less than I did before because I found I have a support system because I was willing to reach out and ask for help.
Do you remember the first time that you did kind of put yourself out there? Were you nervous to do so? I know thankfully you did have a happy outcome with your support system showing
Yeah.
up, but was that first conversation hard for you?
I mean, being vulnerable, I don't think it's something anybody's great at. It's really not something I'm great at. I'm used to people leaning on me. I'm not used to leaning on people. So definitely, like I remember the first conversation, I avoided it. Like the person that was talking to me is like, "How are you doing?" And they asked me like 4 times before I was willing to answer the question. Like I kept like trying to change a subject or give like a superficial answer. And this person really held my feet to the fire. They were unwilling to let me just kind of like politician my way out of it with like a no answer.
Right.
Um, and it really changed my life. I mean, like one conversation can change your life. It changed my mental health life in terms of
Yeah.
understanding there's a stigma in society, but there's not a stigma when you're asking somebody for help. Like there shouldn't be a stigma in our society, but there is. I mean, I take the world as it is. But this person really helped me understand that like there are people in your life, not everybody, that are going to understand, that are going to try to empathize, and they're going to work with you if they can or help you in any way they can.
Right. And even as we get older, I think that we just really we start to value our relationships in our life more, where I feel like, back in the day we wanted all these friends and walk into a room and know everyone, but now I don't care how many I have. I just want good quality people around me. And I even had a conversation with my roommate the other day where I was saying I kind of felt like lame to be in my 20s and not really want to be as social as I guess I felt like I should be. Like if I'm going to go out on a Friday, I don't really want to go out on a Saturday. I feel like I kind of just enjoy that alone time, enjoy that recharge. And she even stopped me and she said, "Why do you feel bad about that? Like, it's okay to not want to do stuff all the time and to not, because it does take energy." And I would say, I love people and, I really thrive off of good conversation and good friendships, but I do like being alone and I do need that time for me to just recharge. And I think that it's actually selfless because we show up so much better for other people. And you've always been extremely kind to me, but I can even tell now that it just feels like there's almost like a layer you shed where it's just a little bit more comfortable. And I think when you realize that there's nothing to be ashamed of, you're like, oh, okay, like this feels
Yeah,
good now, where it's like, if I need some time to myself, like, cool, take it. It's like no one's judging you for it. And I think the right people in your life will accept that you need to do it. It's going to be best for you.
absolutely. I mean, I think part of that shedding came from what you said. Like in my early 20s in college, I wanted to walk into a bar and know every single person there. And that's how I felt validated. And then I realized none of those people gave a damn, like, quite frankly. They didn't care if I showed up. They didn't care if I didn't. They just cared if I was buying a drink. And that's fine. Like that's part of life at that point. But I would much rather have 5 friends that I know if I'm broken down in the middle of nowhere will be
Right.
there for me, than have 1,000 friends. And that's been the real change is like, I have a friend group now that I'm comfortable with that I know won't judge me for something like that. Where in the past, I may have had to have more armor because if you're not Superman, for lack of a better word, they're going to judge you, they're going to tear you down, and they're going to make you feel less than.
Right.
And so I think that's like a lot of the changes is the people I've chosen to have in my life and the people I've chosen to kind of open up to.
As tough as this past year has been, I do think it's been extremely rewarding to get to be in this space where you kind of what you said before, where it's just like I had no one else to turn to. Suddenly it was just you. And I think it is very scary for a lot of people to almost be stripped of their title, whether they lost their job, whether they got out of a relationship, to kind of lose your sense of identity that you've had. It can be a very scary thing because suddenly you're just, who am I? It's like
Yeah.
without our titles, without our labels, I think a lot of people struggle to find their place in the world. And I'm still working on it. I think most of us are still working on
Yeah.
the actual purpose of, what we're here to do. But at the end of the day, it's just like we have to have those hard looks in the mirror. And I even thought about this the other day. It's like, man, for all the time that we spend looking in the mirror, like how many people actually see themselves? Like how many people can actually figure out what's really going on in their mind? And with distractions, and I'm guilty of, moving too fast all the time, I think it gets very easy to ignore the painful things because we have all these reasons of why we're too busy to do it. And COVID, and as unfortunate it was missing your trip, I was questioning that before, if there was some pivotal moment that really stood out to you as like, when did you know you needed to make some kind of change? And it sucks to miss a trip, but that one trip you missed set you up for so many more potential things. And this is so cheesy, but like maybe you didn't physically travel, but like think about the lengths that your mind traveled. Like think about who you were then to who you are now. And it's just like the possibilities really are endless when you give yourself the permission to explore what more there could be when you just get rid of bullshit stigmas.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree.
And what's your plan moving forward now that I know that congratulations, you wanted to lose weight and you feel healthy? And I definitely have always thought the mind and body were very connected. So do you think that you were able to just ultimately become the version of you that you want to be? Was that all related to getting in a good headspace first?
Definitely. So I definitely am not where I want to be. I'm still a work in progress, 100%. But my big problem was like committing. It kind of came along that same vein of not really knowing myself mentally, not really willing to like do anything that somebody might try to make fun of me for. So like for some reason in my head, like dieting and actively exercising was something somebody would like give me shit for lack of a better word.
How dare you
And
try to be healthy? How dare
well, exactly. Well, once again, I live like in the middle of like cornbread, fried chicken, and like sweet tea. So it's not exactly like made for healthy lifestyle, but it's something that I just realized I wanted to do for me. I really kind of committed at the beginning of the year, which is so cliche, and I really hate. I
who
don't do
cares?
New Year's resolutions. I don't really care. It just happened to be that that's when it
Yeah.
coincided with. And I've really held myself to like a diet. I've been exercising every day, walking, whatever it is, like trying to just do more for me, for a multitude of reasons. Mental health, I thought it would help along that journey in terms of like releasing serotonin, everything else, feeling better about myself when I look in the mirror, whatever that is. And the other part of it is like, I was like trying like the dating culture of like apps, which is like the worst thing ever for me. It's just terrible. I hate it.
Jackie.
Um, and I realized I'm not happy with me. So how am I going to go out there and go on a date with somebody like, and worry about my insecurities and
Right.
try to like be present with somebody else and like start a relationship, a very intimate, like not even like physically intimate, like emotionally intimate thing with somebody if I'm not happy with where I am in my journey. So like
Two in
I'm
your
never,
head can't be with someone
yeah.
else.
I was like, I've got to at least get on the right path. So like my thought was like, I've got to get on the right path. to feeling better about myself before I can bring somebody else into my madness. And that was kind of what kicked it off and what has given me really the motivation to keep going. Like I have not had a cheat day, which is like rare for me. Usually I'll be like 2 days and I'm like, I deserve a cheat day. And then it'll turn like a cheat month. And then
Yeah.
that's not great. So
Yeah. I mean, I think when you say your work in progress, I think we all should still be like, I think there's obviously reaching goals and checking off milestones, but at the same time, I think that when we stop growing, what's after that kind of death?
yeah,
Like, isn't the idea to keep evolving? And I'm learning things all the time about, oh, that's why I do that. And oh, maybe I'm a little, should be a little nicer to these people or like think about things before I speak in this situation. And I'm grateful for those, moments of perspective because I feel like that's how we move forward and implement the changes. And I think noticing it is the first step. And I have to ask you now that you've really gone through this process, and I do feel like I can actually see it in you that you seem just lighter and happier. Can you tell maybe if a friend of yours, maybe like a male especially, could be going through the same thing and you think that maybe they don't know how to put that guard down a little bit?
I think probably at the beginning when I first started changing, I could have told you that. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a friend of mine kind of start to take on the same journey in terms of like talking to people and being more open, like about the way he feels. And I think it's been good. Not that I went out to, like, I'm not inspiring anybody. I'm a 32-year-old guy wandering through life. Like I'm
No,
stumbling,
I think you're
but
inspiring.
like,
These guys
I
don't
don't,
talk about this.
no, I mean, it is what it is. If somebody doesn't talk about it, nobody's going to talk about it. So I'm fine with it. So it was luckily one of the people I felt good about opening up about like how I was feeling with. Super supportive. Like, not that I was ever at this place, but like was such a good friend that would randomly find excuses to pop by my house during COVID, like
Mhm.
for almost like a wellness check. Not that I was ever at a place where I needed a wellness check, but like that was how he could show that he cared. And he's like since then started talking to somebody and been more open about his feelings with those around him. And I've seen a change in him. It's not because of me, but I think just removing the stigma a little bit and showing that like it is what it is. We all go through it. Has helped him kind of take on his own journey.
That's amazing. And with work, now that things are, thankfully getting better and, a lot of work environments, some may do a lot from home too, but eventually you think that you are going to start to be in the office more than you were. How do we now take what we've learned with the balance of, it's one thing to put on your best face. And I
Yeah.
think I'll have to adjust a little bit when we are in a work setting, but how do you still honor what you need before worrying about the perception of other people?
So I think still, even though the journey's taken place during COVID, I feel like mentally it'll be easier in the office. Like right now, like I'm gonna be honest with you, like I used to go to the office, like button up shirt every day, not dressed up, but like business casual. I'd have jeans on. I would never wear a hat to the office. Like even though we're super chill, like wear what you want as long as you're getting your job done. People show up in flip flops and shorts, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So like I put on work clothes for lack of a better word, like, and that was a mental thing in the morning. And then I would drive to work and drive home, and you had that time to like kind of reflect on your day and process it. And then you got home and you were home. I feel like having that separation of home and work will help. I think because right now I just roll out of bed, like throw on some clothes, throw on a hat, and like I'm good to go for work for the day, unless I have like an external meeting.
Right.
So put like getting ready for work, seeing people in person. I'm a body language person too, so I'm like terrible on video calls because if there's like a moment of awkward silence, I'll just fill it with conversation. So I feel like it'll be better for me being able to read people's body language, see people in person, and have that kind of buffer in between work and home, that it's physically separated. That it'll help. Like I don't think we as a company are ever going to go back 5 days a week. I think we're going to go back 2 days a week probably.
Nice.
But I think that's going to be a little bit of a separation will be great. I think it'll be the perfect opportunity for me to reflect on my day, process it, and leave it in the car before I walk through the door.
And then if I could ask for just our final question of someone else that's like, you know what, man, I'm actually really inspired. I know you don't feel inspiring, but I do think it's very hard for a lot of people just to simply say, I'm not my best today. I don't feel that good. So to have someone like you who is so normal and friendly and nice, and you're a lot of guys that do talk about their feelings tend to work in therapy. So to find someone that doesn't work in the space, but just genuinely is open to talking about it, I think could be really admiring to other people. And just was there a book or a resource or something aside from therapy that just really started to connect with you?
Yeah. So I read, I can't remember the author. It's a journal and inspirational or whatever, like quotes, but it was Stoicism. So it was like,
Hmm.
which is based like on Marcus Aurelius, like Roman emperors. And it was like control what you can control. Because in my head, I thought I could control everything in my world, which is unrealistic expectation. So I would get disappointed, or I would get disappointed with people in my life if they weren't giving what I felt I would give in the same situation. I was like, I had too high of expectations, or unrealistic expectations, not too high. And it really helped me kind of focus on what I could control in my life, what could impact me, and kind of letting the other bullshit kind of fall to the side. So I did that for the whole year. Like I did the full year of every day reading it, and there was an accompanying journal. I journaled with it. It was a really great resource for me. I really enjoyed it. So that was one of the things. Right when I went to therapy, they didn't recommend it, but I'd heard good things. I grabbed it and started doing that on my own to try to supplement therapy and other conversations.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was a really great conversation. And I'm so happy to see that you're in a good space. And I also want to say that we're still going to have our bad days, all of us. So honor the progress that you're making. And I'm so happy to see that you genuinely look so happy. But don't beat yourself up if you do have a bad day, because we're still human, right? Like it's going to happen, and it's going to be okay is the best part of it. Like we're going to figure it out. And I'm thankful to know that I can turn to you. And I hope you feel the same. If you ever want to talk, I'm here for you.
Absolutely. Always. I appreciate it.
I will let you go. Thank you so much for your dedication to this interview and finding a quiet place in your car. I really do appreciate it.
No
And
worries at all.
with that, we will end the season of the podcast or series, whatever. I haven't quite decided yet, but just like anything, it's a work in progress. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
We'll talk soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.